Elon thinks he's so cool. Thinks he's the only guy with a spaceship, and he's putting stuff in people's brains now. You're not the only guy with a space. I could do that. What even is Neuralink supposed to do anyway? Yeah, so it was in a pig. Okay, that's cool. But what does it mean for the future of thought, even? And what if I wasn't just talking to myself right now, and this wasn't all rhetorical? Welcome to Office Hours. Whew, that thing lands quick, huh? Hello, and welcome to Office Hours, the live version of the facility where good old Professor Kyle opens up his blast doors and lets you ask any old question that's sciencey or pop culture-y or nerdy, and I try to answer it live off the top of my head to the best of my ability. Hey, I'm the administrator of a large facility. I'm not a doctor. I haven't been arrested that you know of. And I know a little bit about a lot of stuff. So if you want to ask me any of these assorted questions during the next hour or so, please do so in the YouTube chat. Super chats are also activated if you really, really want me to see your nerdy question. I will try my very best to get to most of them, but if I do not, I still appreciate it. Of course, we're simping for science. And as we're simping for science, all of that simp money goes towards the facility, which if you want to join this wonderful little research organization, you can go to patreon.com/Kyle Hill and join today, as my security team is putting in the chat. We have Discord, we have behind the scenes, we have super exclusive live chats with me once a month. You get videos a day early. Oh, it's fun, but you know it's not fun? Spamming the chat and doing all caps and being weird and gross. Then you get banned immediately. Anyway, like we usually do on Office Hours, I'm going to be taking your questions for the next hour or so, but I'm also going through a number of topics that I found interesting or frightening or cool or what have you throughout the week, and we'll be covering those. We'll be starting off with, of course, Neuralink. We'll be moving on to skin. We'll be moving back to Elon Musk with some satellite talk. We'll be taking one of your recent comments from the most recent episode of the facility. And finally, we'll be going to some Thin Lizzies. But before all that, we already have a super chat from The Resurrection with the 5. It says, what sciencey stuff would you make about Minecraft? Could you make a shout out to Crystal? #SimForScience. Hey, Crystal, or the crystal material in Minecraft. Well, a lot has been done around science in Minecraft, specifically by game theory, and the last thing that I want is to be compared to him yet again. But hey, that's just a theory. So before we get to any more of your questions, I know many of you are watching and waiting for Neuralink talk, so let's get to that right meow. This is Gertrude. Gertrude has a coin-sized implant in her brain. Outside of this implant, little metallic-looking thing, come many wires. Those wires are many times, I think 20 times thinner than luscious, luxurious human hair. Well, I mean. Anyway, and these wires are directly connected to some of Gertrude's neurons. And Gertrude underwent this operation as a part of a demonstration for Elon Musk's Neuralink venture, which seeks to meld mind and machine and man. And what this is traditionally called in the research is BMI, brain-machine interface, or BCI, brain-computer interfaces. And the potential for a brain-computer interface could be life-changing. What Elon Musk hopes to do is start to cure things like paralysis, or even start treating dementia or those kind of things that are certainly dependent on neurons and the brain. So this ceiling for something like a BMI is very high. And what it does at a ground level is it is an interface between a machine and your brain, or between a computer in your brain. So what Gertrude is exemplifying here is really the connection between the two. And before you're off to the races and saying, Neuralink is basically Deus Ex, well, not yet. Let's go through it step by step, because right now the technology that's been shown off is just the connection part. And as part of that connection, Elon did show some interesting things during the conference, which you can watch on YouTube. He showed the machine that could be used to, in an automated fashion, implant this thing into your brain. And that would go a long way in mass marketing this device. Elon is good at this kind of thing, taking technical and very sexy sci-fi ideas and thinking of like the business way to incorporate them. So you couldn't just do this on a one-to-one doctor basis. It would take forever. So you would want something that could be automated, where you go into a lab, not a lab, but you go into some, you know, some large medical pharma company and you pay them however much money it is and you undergo this procedure. Now, once you have this procedure done, what happens? Well, in Gertrude, what is happening is very simple. And this is where we have to kind of tamp down our expectations just a bit, because what Neuralink has so far showed is very basic. So what they did is implant this coin-sized thing into Gertrude's brain and connect the wires, the very thin wires that are definitely not as thick and as luscious as human hair, to neurons in Gertrude's snout. So whenever her snout had some sort of electrical stimulation, or her neurons in her snout were stimulated, the BMI, Neuralink, would recognize these signals and then wirelessly send them to some other device. Now, the wireless technology part of it is quite cool, and Elon thinks about, connecting a Neuralink device via Bluetooth to your phone or something like that. Now, why I keep mentioning the expectations things is that this could possibly be a read-write system, where you're not just receiving electrical signals, and those signals go down wires into a thing and then is transmitted out to a computer, but you could also write. So this Neuralink could generate electrical signals and then stimulate certain portions of your brain. Very top level, you are everything that makes you you, your personality, your memories, is basically a thunderstorm in meat. A very small and very tiny thunderstorms in very specific and complicated meat. But you're basically a thunderstorm in meat, which is to say that I could change how you think, how you act, basically anything about you as a person by manipulating electrical signals in your brain. And this is the classic Matrix-style setup where, what is real? Well, if real is everything you can touch, taste, smell, and see, then reality is nothing more than electrical signals interpreted by your brain. I believe I got that verbatim. I've seen The Matrix many times. And Lawrence Fishburne shops at where I should. Anyway, he drives a Tesla. It's coming all back around. Anyway, so bring this all back. If you had a write system in place, you could change signals happening in Gertrude's brain, and then the sky's the limit in terms of the technology, what you could do. But right now, that's not where Neuralink is. Right now, Elon is describing it as like a Fitbit for your brain, where just implemented at this level, you could have an app on your phone that says, you have some activity levels in your, So you see what I'm saying here? We're only reading information from Gertrude at this point. Once you added more wires, the ability to write, that's when you start getting to a weird place. But we're not there yet. As a number of neuroscientists reacted to this story, they're saying, like, this is basic neuroscience, and we can do this kind of BMI thing. So it's not breaking any barriers, but to his credit, and I always give him credit for this, what Elon does seem to be really good at is taking these grandiose ideas and actually pushing them into reality, where many of these ideas could never happen or wouldn't happen in the same way without someone actually stepping forward and putting the money there and adding an influx of resources to the system to make something like this happen. So what we saw from Elon Musk this week was not Deus Ex, was not Cyberpunk, but it's not those things. This is the very, very first stepping stone. And whether or not you could actually cure something like paralysis with this, in theory, some of those things are possible. But what has been shown right now is certainly not even close to that. I've seen speculations where it's probably not even in Elon's lifetime, unless he downloads his consciousness to a giant robot like Samuel Hayden in Doom 2016. So, I'd like you to take this with a grain of salt, is what I'm saying. Very interesting technology, and it gets a lot of buzz, but we are not quite at cyberpunk levels yet. This is an interesting first step, but that's all it is until it's more verified with more studies. They're working closely with the FDA until it can do more things. We're taking a step, but a step in a decently cool direction. Of course, this also opens up an entire cybernetic can of worms where, well, what if hackers could hack into the Bluetooth of your BMI and start downloading information from your brain? Uh-oh. You know, and it's weird that we're at a place in society now where I think if you really thought about it right now, if you really considered it, you would probably rather have someone hack into your brain than hack into your phone. And I know that sounds crazy, but think about it. Your phone knows so much more about you than you can remember about yourself. So with different data points, just your GPS data, where you go every day, what you order from, which kind of phone calls you make, who you're calling, your credit card information, what your social media profiles say, all of this with sufficient, algorithmic rigor, I could tell you more about yourself than you could tell me. Like more granular in terms of your habits and what you do and where you go and who you associate with and what's your socioeconomic status and what's your political viewpoints and stuff like that. So there's a pitfall here where if you could hack directly into that stream of data, that could be quite bad. But I do, again, give Elon credit for trying to be at the beginning of this conversation to help ensure that it goes in the right direction, or a direction that he thinks is at least right. I know he's very worried about artificial intelligence and those kind of things. So being a part of the stepping stones on the bottom of this staircase towards the singularity is good. And these things deserve press, but not crazy. But it's not crazy yet. It's not Adam Jensen, because he didn't ask for this. And you definitely have to ask to have that implanted in your head. Let's see what the chat has to say. We have Igor with the 10. Hey, Kyle, any maintain tips for grooming? Yeah, so I've been recently growing my beard, which I've never done before. It's a lockdown experiment. And know the shape of your face that you're going for. If you have a very strong jaw, even though it might be cool to generally have a long beard, contour that so you still have angles and interesting features to your face. Accentuate what you want to highlight or what you think your strong suits are. This is what fashionistas have been doing for years with highlighting and contouring and blending and all that kind of stuff. ARIA watches a lot of beauty tutorials, and it kind of rubs off on me. Pun intended. So know what you're going for, and don't be afraid to take steps that will work. Like, so this sounds silly, but like as a guy, I was very hesitant to blow dry my hair. I don't know why. But if you go back and look at me on Mythbusters The Search in 2016, when I wasn't blow drying my hair looks like garbage. And I wish I could take all that back. I wish I took more care and put aside my vanity for a second to be like, yeah, you probably know what you're doing, considering you do this every single day of your life. So, focus on your strength. Eon's Revenge with the 20 says, how do you think this will be affected? You didn't by the singularity. Well, I think that's a little bit backwards, in that the singularity will affect everything. This won't affect the singularity. The singularity would affect them. So the singularity is more so the point at which technology starts to outpace human intelligence and human technological evolution to a point where it's, not even close anymore. And once that happens, I mean, you could have computers with real sentience. And that's way beyond BMI stuff at the moment. So I think it's the other way around. We have 5 from Slow Dancing with a Mongoose. Don't do that if you're a Cobra. You can call me Rapper H2O, because I can speak those rhymes so smooth they're like laminar flow. Okay. That was more turbulent than I think you wanted. But the Reynolds number was low, so I'll give it to you. We have Barry with the 5 who says, so way down the line, could BMI, say, teach you Kung Fu instantly like Neo? Whoa. So, like I said, the theoretical ceiling on a BMI is super, super high, right? Where, in theory, you could send a certain pattern and duration and complexity of electrical signals to the right neurons in your brain to teach you something. But that is so complicated and so far down the line, I don't think we're even close to that. We don't even understand the complexity of our own brains yet. We don't know how consciousness forms. You'd have to get pretty far. Our expertise would have to increase quite a bit, I think, before you're downloading plans to fly a helicopter in very tight leather pants. We have Stefan Thompson with the 20 says, so the anime Psycho-Pass has Japan using a machine to predict if you have the mental capacity to commit crimes before they commit them. Would something like this be possible? Would a BMI be on the same track as this? Would it even be possible? Again, yeah, I mean, you would have to have a lot of crazy information first. But again, in theory, and this is all hyper complicated stuff, but in theory, if you had neuronal patterns from, say, psychopaths, and they were, foolproof, you did so many studies and you saw like, oh, if this brain activity or these brain regions start activating when they look at a picture of a bunny because they want to murder it or something, then that person's definitely a psychopath. Then with a BMI, you could be like, BMI, fully integrated into society. You walk into a gun store. I'd like to buy this gun, please. Sure, no problem. Just a quick BMI check. Sure. Well, you have psychopathic tendencies, so you have been denied. Could something like that happen? I mean, again, ceiling is very high on stuff that could actually happen here. Diabolical Shadow, who was answering a lot of questions about vision earlier in the chat, says, you think Lawrence Fishburne would name his Tesla the Nebuchadnezzar? Oh, I should ask him. If I see him, I'll bother him. Don't worry. I'll do it for you. Let's pause the super chats for just a bit so we can get to our next topic. Oh, crap. Daring Blitz with the 20, who says, hey, I've caught all of the uploads of your streams so far, but this is the first one I've actually had the ability to catch live. Keep up the fantastic work, simping for science. Daring Blitz, thank you so much. I love to hear that. Donations like yours go towards all the educational stuff that we try to do here at a daily basis, and invisibility. I'm telling you, you don't get better ice water than water from Titan. And we have a $49.99 from Grin Reaper of Trolls, frequent supporter of the facility. Says, hey Kyle, just paid off some student loans, so whoo! Oh, but I do have to leave some money for magic. When I get back to school, I'll be switching from physics to genetics. Do you have any advice? Well, first of all, pay your student loans before you pay me. That's rule 1. Rule 2, or B, or whatever my fingers are doing. Switching from physics to genetics. Well, I don't know what level you're doing. If you're doing like graduate student stuff, it's gonna obviously be a big shift in your in your thinking. What I would do is, because the actual, the facts and the study, what you're going to be studying is very different than physics, from forces to base pairs. So what I would try to do, or what I try to do when I'm learning a new thing, is identify the commonalities and bolster your knowledge of one field with another. So I'm not going to lie, it might be very hard to latch on to genetics coming from physics, but maybe if you could start conceptualizing it in such a way where you're looking at the physical interactions of, say, DNA or RNA, or when creatures reproduce, are you thinking about the physics of, you could think about, just how genetic material makes its way through fallopian tubes via the minuscule motion, little rotary motion through a very, viscous kind of environment with that has a lot of resistance to shearing forces. Like, you could put complicated topics in your terms and work back up from there, and hopefully then it won't feel like you're going in totally blind. But what do I know? I'm not a doctor. Although I will get an honorary degree eventually. Cool Guys Nation with the 25 who says just cuz. See, that's classy. Do you know how classy? Second topic time classy, baby. What? Oh, yeah, right. So it's not just, we're not just in a black void because that's how my soul feels, and that's where I came from about 6 months ago. I'm doing this because I'm warning you that I'm about to show you a photo of a second-degree burn. The second-degree burn is not bad, but it does show, like, the secondary layer of someone's skin. Again, it's not graphic. There's no blood, but it does show some skin a little bit peeled off on someone's hand. Okay? So if you don't want to see that, promise, it's more cool than it is gross. Like me. What are we looking at? Well, I stumbled upon something on Reddit that blew my mind. And it speaks to how this phenomenon actually works, and I think we can learn something. So what you are seeing here is a guy with a tattoo who got a second-degree burn. You'll notice the tattoo is crazy vibrant underneath the skin. You look for more photos of this phenomenon, you find stuff like this, where you have a moderate, well, not moderate, but a bad second-degree burn, revealing the tattoo ink underneath. And we did an episode a long time ago on Because Science about this, but if you weren't aware, I was always under a misconception about how tattoos actually work. So I thought tattoos was ink inside of needles. Those needles went down into the skin and then injected it. But that's not how, tattoos work. Tattoos work by capillary action. So a combination of surface tension and adhesion of a liquid helps it sometimes fight gravity, but in a small enough tube or channel, it can pull itself up and through. So that's why if you put a piece of paper towel in water, the water will climb up some amount because of this capillary action. Similarly, if you make a lot of holes in your skin and then pour ink over those holes, that ink will be drawn down into the holes by capillary action. So what a tattoo gun does is it's just really good at making a lot of holes. And then the ink is just kind of on top of it, and it gets sucked in. That ink forms a layer underneath the epidermis, the top layer of your skin. And so it's really not all that surprising knowing how tattoos really work, that if you were to remove this upper layer of skin, there would be that second layer, that layer where everything is hanging out underneath. And it doesn't look faded at all. So that gives you some indication that the fading that we see on tattoos has a lot to do with the aging of upper layers of skin, and the changing of the light from the ink when it's vibrant, not out of your skin, light going into your skin, hitting the ink, and then reflecting back out. Something in the process is lost there, right? And it's sitting right there underneath. Why doesn't it go away? Well, your body doesn't like ink in your skin. Your body doesn't like anything foreign in your body. And so it will send these macrophages, little chompy boys, out to the tattoo. Now, these chompy boys would usually remove this material, but because these are large, relatively speaking, particles of metal in your skin, the chompy boys can't fully get around them, or they can't eat them all, and chompy boys die. Or that just takes them a much longer time to remove the material. And so that's why a tattoo will stay for a long time without being fully removed. So what laser removal does is it breaks up the size of these metal particles such that the macrophages can then go and remove the material, and then you poop it out. You poop a tattoo. Hashtag poop a tattoo. And the lasers do this by, and I learned this from Smarter Every Day, The lasers do this by differentially heating the metal particle. So if you have a metal particle here and you heat up one side of it in a very, very small laser pulse, the difference in heat could be many hundreds of degrees or whatever. And that difference in the material can create a force that will crack it or break it or separate it. And then once it's in smaller pieces, then your body can take it away. But before your body takes it away, as you can see, it just hangs out there. Isn't that wild? I thought that was cool. Do you think it's cool? Let's find out. Watchboy52 says, "Hey Kyle, something I've always wondered about is that wouldn't plasma weapons sound more like thunder than the typical sound in pop culture?" Plasma, if it's contained, it's very high pressure gas, more or less. And so I don't think it would really sound like anything if it's staying in that ball. But it would dissipate very quickly. It produce some kind of sound wave. I think it would be like kind of more farty than cool. I don't know. We'd have to fire one of these guns. I think it'd be more like boom than anything. Petra Snow says, "Dogs live roughly 1/7 as long as humans. Do they experience life faster than we do, or is it just as simple as they have shorter life?" We actually went through this. There's a study on dogs, and dog years is much more complicated than we thought it was. And so, to answer your question, yeah, the perception of time in their own lives is probably accelerated or different, because you find that the correlation or the relationship between human years and dog years is not linear. It changes. So when dogs are 1, 2, 3, it's more like they're already passing into their early 30s. And so, it stands to reason that during this time, they might, they don't feel like they're 2. You know what I mean? If they feel anything at all in that moment. Jack and Coffee says, "You and Destin should collab on something." Yeah, well, I mean, I'd love to. Destin is a really nice guy, and I've met him, and we've talked for a while. He was, I was talking with him before I left because science to do my own thing, and he was encouraging, being like, I hope everything works out for you, man, and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, I'd absolutely do something with him, but he's too famous, YouTube-wise, for me. It's Drake with the 5 says, "Hey, love, show the... Which quantum interpretation do you like the most?" I'm simping for science. Well, I defer to the experts because I know nothing about quantum mechanics aside from the very basics. And friend of mine, very smart guy, Sean Carroll, theoretical physicist at Caltech, he defers to the many worlds interpretations of quantum mechanics. And from what I've heard and read and watched lectures on, I like the many worlds interpretation as well. Sergeant Sphinx with 15 says, "Related to your discussion on tattoos, do you have any idea why some people have spots on their skin that tattoos refuse to stick to?" No. No, I don't. Oh, I imagine... Is it... I don't know. Does it have something to do with maybe the difference in skin density, or it's just harder for that capillary action to really work because what's underneath the skin or going through the skin is different? I don't know. That's complicated. Omega Link with the 5 says, "Kyle is my middle name." We have the new kid with the 25 who says, "A photon checks into a hotel. Picking up the room key, the bellhop asks, 'Do you need help with your luggage?' And, 'No thanks,' the photon says. 'I'm traveling light.'" Thank you for your $25 donation. And for giving all the dads in the chat something to say tomorrow. Nathan Kramer with the 15 says, "Great job, Kyle." What would you call a new rock grading system for Mars? Well, then the Martian rocks would have to be substantially different. And the way that you climb... Oh, well, interesting. I give them G grades because the gravity is only, 38% of what it is on Earth? 60% less, and so rock climbing would be substantially easier on Mars because you'd only weigh 40% of 40% of what you weigh here. So you'd be so much lighter, and you'd be able to do crazy moves. So you need the G scale, and that G scale could then transfer to other planets. Bam, nailed it. Steven says, with a 10. Hey, Kyle, love the show. If you were to create a futuristic world for an original sci-fi universe, what pseudoscientific or scientific principle would the weapons be based on? I've always been a fan. Well, I mean, I like hard sci-fi, obviously, but I've always loved magnetic induction and like Gauss and railguns and that kind of thing, because then it's not so much like it's harnessing physics for something really powerful, and the projectiles themselves don't matter as much, and that's appealing to me. Where you don't need this fancy bullet, you just have a rifle that can accelerate a sand grain size of sand grain piece of hardened, or depleted uranium to 10 miles a second, and that will go through anything. I like that kind of, I like the ridiculousness of that kind of thing. Daniel Rios with the MX100. Oh, should I be excited? Don't know. Do you think that humans experience deja vu because our brain is evolving to experience time in a non-linear way, like in the movie Arrival? Let's pause the super chats for a second so we can move on to the next topic. But no, I do not think deja vu is evolving our brains to remember in a different way. That's jumping through a lot of hoops. And what would be the selective pressure? There is no selective pressure to misremember what you did or what you're doing. So it doesn't have a clear evolutionary pathway to me. But we'll be talking about evolution in just a minute. One of my most active professors in the facility, Peter, with the RSD 250. Should I be excited? Again, I don't know. What am I, an economic boy? Do a dab so I can gif it. I hate myself. Back to Musk. So, I wanted to do another Musk story this week because I wanted to talk about the price of progress and how there can be conflicts to what you want to do. So, you may have heard about Starlink. Is that the name of it? Starlink. Neuralink, Starlink. See, he's good at branding. But Starlink is a project to put more than 30,000 satellites in orbit around the Earth with the hopes of beaming very high-speed internet back down to Earth. Now, the aims of this are quite noble. Facebook and Google and other companies were looking into doing something like this, but the internet and connectivity has given more of humanity more access to more information, more opportunities for learning and for growth than at any time in the history of humanity. A 10-year-old with an iPad has more access to information than Aristotle did. It's crazy. So the goal of getting more information, more accessibility to more people, and especially underserved, underprivileged peoples or third world countries, I think is a good aim. But now we talk about the price of progress. How do you achieve that aim? Well, brute force approach sounds like putting thousands of satellites to do this for you. But it's never that easy. And so, as these Starlink satellites have been put into Earth's orbit, you start to see stuff. So these are the trails taken by a telescope. Different pictures taken by a telescope, but these are the time-lapse trails of these Starlink satellites. You can see them unaided from Earth with your own eye around dusk. And I don't know if you know this, but telescope pictures aren't supposed to look like that. It's an incredible amount of interference and just covering up the night sky. And because of this, literally hundreds of astronomers have joined together. More than 250 astronomers have joined together, put forth a recent research paper that basically says, dude, this could really impact astronomy in the future and scientific discovery looking at the universe. You're, to put it bluntly, you're blocking our telescopes. It's very hard to get around these things when they're orbiting the planet so frequently and so often. And I'm not being crazy here. Like, you can see these Starlink satellites from the ground, and they're very shiny. And fun little interaction. These recent launchings of the satellites have increased the number of UFO sightings as well, because they're shiny, they're in a non-random pattern, and so people think they're UFO. Well, no, people think they're UFOs, and they're not. They're identified flying objects, and they're not even flying. They're falling. Be technical. Anyway, so when you look up in the night sky, you could see many of these Starlink satellites, and what the astronomers proposed then was, okay, if you want to keep doing this, Muskie, here's our recommendations, and they had a number of them, which, to their credit, Starlink has started to incorporate in some of their new launches, but darken the satellites, paint them with something Vanta blacky, and so they don't move, they don't reflect as much light, and so they'd be darker against the night sky, may not interfere so many. You could keep them lower, closer to the Earth, where telescopes and the like aren't looking. You could also reorient the satellites so they don't reflect as much sunlight. You know, if there's a large metal plate, or, you know, they're rectangular roughly, there's a large metal plate that's at a certain angle reflecting down towards the Earth, you could just orient them so that reflection is back into space or something like that. But number one on the list for these astronomers to help keep astronomy clean and scientific discovery via astronomy and cosmology on the right track, their number one recommendation was, please don't launch these. So now we have attention, right? And I don't have an actual answer for you here as to what is better and what is worse. That's going to come down. That's going to come down to everyone individually. Where is getting more access to more information to hundreds of millions, if not a few billion extra people, is that worth possibly hindering or making it more difficult to do astronomy and cosmology and learn about the universe from Earth? What's the real cost benefit? I mean, if I was a storyteller, you know, and I was trying to like propagandize some of this, I mean, you could, you know, is someone in, you know, in Africa more able to send money via the internet, via some secure service to their elderly parents across the country? More people being able to do that kind of thing worth astronomers having some more bright things in the sky that make it hard to look at? On the other hand, you can go the other way, where you spin it. If I was a politician or, you know, a company man, you spin it and say, well, is it, you know, is giving the planet better access to 4chan worth blinding us to the magnificence of the universe? And see, now when you put it that way, you're like, yeah. So this is going to come down to everyone. And I don't, like I said, I don't have the right answer, but I just wanted to point out that the world is not clean, and the answers to these things aren't easy. And we need, especially in science and in everyone's life, when you're an adult, you need to learn. In my opinion, it helps to learn to live with ambiguity and grayness, and when everything becomes so black and so white, so left and right, up and down, I think you can get a little extreme. Not that we've been seeing that anywhere. Eric Lawrence with the 19 says, if we consider all the changes catastrophic events force us to make, do you believe they make us more or less resilient as a country or a species? That is, if we live, we learn, and institute permanent changes as a result. Eric, in theory, learning from your mistakes is great. But again, just given what we're going through right now, I've said this many times, with America specifically, does our response to world-changing events give you real hope that we can learn from our mistakes? I'm going to be honest. If this is a trial run for a much worse pandemic, which is going to happen eventually, or something like really tackling climate change, I'm not very optimistic about our resiliency there. In theory, yes, you want to learn from your mistakes. You always do. I have a personal rule that I try to never make a mistake more than once. I'll accept making a mistake once, but after that, you learn from it, don't make it again. Otherwise, you didn't learn anything. But I don't know, man. Mahmood with the 5 says, forget light pollution. My concern with 30,000 small satellites is space launches before becoming more difficult, if not impossible. I don't know if that's an actual possibility. I don't know if flight windows, because they all are so small and so specific, I don't know if Starlink actually hampers that. You'd have to look into it. Dr. Strange Jove, one of my biggest supporters and facility members with the 10, says, would fewer larger satellites be better for our future space travel? Mass amount of mini satellites sounds like a fast track to Kessler syndrome. Yes, possibly, where we get locked into our planet, but it's harder to do with this kind of project because you're talking about coverage. You want to cover as much of the planet as possible in signal, and that's just not amenable to less numbers of things that send out signal. Let's pause the super chats for a second so we can move right along to our next topic. Alcar T94 with the 25. Hey, Kyle, love what you do. Seems that if we're not doomed as a species, and a city planet is inevitable. The Eucanopolis. Never seen that word before. Are you for or against this, considering the irreversible environmental impact this would have? I don't know if we're going to get... If you get to a city planet like Coruscant, hello there. You have basically, what, eliminated the biosphere? So then where are you getting your food from? And where are all the animals to maintain some level of ecological balance? And how is the pollution being handled? And if you're at a point where you've lost all like the natural space and it's just cities, I think you're less Coruscant, more Mega City 1. And if you get that reference, you're cool. Fabian with the exercising pear says, keep it up. Thank you. Michael T with the 5 says, hey channel, Kyle the love, hashtag simp for science. Well, okay. What did I just talk about? This. So, oh, jeez. Have you been in there the whole time? Oh, I did skip something. Just a second. Wait. Hold on for a second, okay? That means hold on in lizard speak. So, I almost missed our regular section of peer review. Peer review is where I take a good comment from the last episode of the facility, in this case, Grey Goo, Nanomachine Apocalypse, and I highlight it, and then Kevin gives you a plaque, and you're an honorary member of the facility. Hey. This week's peer review goes down to TTIOTO. TTIOTO. That name sounds like something that Sting would say over and over again in a Police song. It says, Elizabeth Sobek says about 15 months. Kyle says about 20 months. I guess Horizon Zero Dawn was right. Now, I've been very vocal about my love for Horizon Zero Dawn. And what's interesting is that it does fit perfectly into our discussion of the nanomachine apocalypse. What Horizon Zero Dawn did was take a nanomachine apocalypse, and the idea of it, and the exponential replication of it, that idea, but just made the bots like big murder machines. And so if they were replicating as fast as, these nanomachines that we've done the math for, then you could see the real problem. In the game, they do have a line of dialogue where the lead scientist, Elizabeth, is estimating how much time they have before the Pharaoh swarm, what they call the swarm of the machines, self-replicating, before it covers the entire planet and eliminates all of the biosphere. She says 15 months. In the paper that we looked at by Dr. Friedis Jr., and what we said in the episode was about 20 months. So I don't know if someone there at Guerrilla Games really, really did their research, but for how great a game Horizon Zero Dawn is, I absolutely would not put it past them. It is a fresh take on the nanomachine apocalypse. It is interesting. The lead character, her performance is great. She's non-sexualized. The stories are interesting. The combat is is crisp and responsive and fun. The graphics are beautiful. The machines are interesting. I love everything about the game, but for giving me one more thing to love about the game, oh, the science, TTO. You are now an honorary member of the facility. Fantastic. Fantastic. Kevin. The plaque. What do you mean? Okay, TTO. I gotta be honest with you. We forgot the plaque. So, I'm gonna... Congratulations. We'll be right back after this short commercial break. Are you tired with having dull, frizzy hair that makes it look like you're still in a metal band in high school? Are you tired with looking like you just walked out of a barn with too much pieces of hay in your hair? Don't worry what they were doing in there. Well, try Exponential Shampoo. Infused with nanobots and argan oil for an apocalyptic level of clean and shine. With Exponential Shampoo, your level of shine, sheen, and style doesn't stop at some kind of dumb linear function. No. You are increasing unbounded. That's Exponential Shampoo. Put nanobots and argan oil straight into your hair. Warning, 16% chance of global destruction when used regularly. I use it in my hair, but I don't use it like so much that things become, problematic. So moving on to our last topic here. Alan T with the A25. Oh, Alaskan dollars? Nice. We are going to talk about lizards. So, as you know, I have a love for evolution. I love talking about it. I love thinking about it. And I came across a very interesting study that puts together evolution, climate change, and lizards. And I went to a reptile store 2 days ago, and dang, I love looking at lizards. Put that on my grave. So this study was looking at the evolution of anoles, these lizards, on tropical islands. But evolution of lizards in response to intense climactic events like hurricanes and cyclones. So what this study did was look at 188 different species of lizards on tropical islands that over the course of 70 years have been impacted frequently, every year, by hurricanes and cyclones. And what they found was that the lizards that spent time on the islands that were frequently hit by hurricanes had larger foot pads, as you can see there. And these foot pads are absolutely incredible. They look like just pads, but if you zoom in, enhance, the material, the little fibers, go all the way down to nanoscale. And when you're at nanoscale, you can interact with the van der Waals forces of material, which is an electric attraction, more or less, due to the partial charges of everything. And so they can climb up glass. Their hands are very sticky, better than Spider-Man's hands. That's a fact. And so these lizards that were in more hurricane-prone areas had larger handpeats, in theory, to better deal with crazy winds all the times and weather. And why I'm bringing this up and why it's so cool to me, and also the study looked at islands that weren't frequently hit by hurricanes, and they found that those toe peats were smaller, which gives good evidence when you have a control like that. Now, why I bring this up is because one of the common arguments you will hear about against evolution, at least if you live in America, is that no one's seen evolution happen. These guys, usually wearing button-down shirts tucked into their pants and khaki pants, and they don't look like they've ever had fun in their lives. They say, well, no one's ever seen evolution happen in real time. That is not the case. You just don't know where to look. So within one human lifetime, we can identify biology, physiology, genetics that is changing in response to an environmental pressure, to a pressure of selection on these lizards. Their hands are getting bigger to deal with climate. That's incredible. There's other incredible examples of this too, of course. One of my favorites is a cricket population that was separated geographically by a large highway. And so that doesn't sound like that much of a barrier, but when you're a tiny insect, it is. And so it split this population in half. And the mates, they're trying to find each other, but when they were singing their little cricket songs, they couldn't be heard over the sounds of the highway. And so what researchers found was that these crickets started changing the frequency and the volume of their leg noises to actually get their information across. Evolution in populations in real time. There's another one, when the Industrial Revolution started, there was these, I forget where and when this is, but 100 years ago, it was identified that there were these white moths in a forest, and this forest was near a large power plant or coal-fired plant, whatever it was. And so the trees got more and more filled with soot, that is to say darker. Now as that happened, these white moths were much easier to pick out against the bark, and so the selective pressure was birds now being able to see them and eat more of those. And so over time, evolution favored moths that were less white, more camouflaged. And again, within a few generations of these insects, within a single human lifetime, you find that that population had shifted to more camouflaged, darker moth colorations. So this lizard, those moths, those are all fantastic examples of evolution happening in real time and in response to events that affect us too. Biology isn't static. It feels static because we as humans don't live for very long. But when you look on long enough, on a long enough timeline, if you look at how much life has changed just in the last, fraction of a few billion years, it's incredible what this process of random mutation selected by nature can produce. Dark moths, sticky lizzy boys. Let's see what the chat has to say before we end. We have Nick Keese with the 20 says, "Show the love, Kyle. Hey." God, you guys are really messing with my brain now, because I think we've gone through every iteration of that sentence and I don't know what to think anymore. "I finally made it live. I usually listen to you the day after at work." Thank you. Maybe a dumb question. If a 10-meter hole just spontaneously appeared on the surface of the Earth to the center, what would happen? I think it would close immediately. I don't know. So, have you ever seen engineers dig pretty far down into the ground, like near a road, or installing like a piping system or something like that? What you'll see is that they put, if it's like 10 feet deep or whatever, they'll put these enormous metal sheets connected by rods. They'll put these enormous metal sheets down, pressing on the sides of the chasm while people are working in it. And that's because these walls can easily just fail. And if you think of how much weight is behind these walls, or a 10-meter hole, especially when you get far down, think of how much earthen weight, how much pressure, millions and millions, billions of pounds, whatever it would be, is behind that. And so I do not think I don't think the material, resistance to shear force and stuff like that would be enough to keep it from collapsing pretty immediately. That would be my guess, especially when it's that big. Breadboard with the 20 says, "Kyle, if a proliferated constellation of satellites is the only way to beam more of that lusciously groomed hair straight into my eyeballs, sign me up, baby. I'll simp. No science." Hey, man. Okay, Alan T with the Australian $25. Okay, it's not Alaskan. Okay, now that I know you're from Australia, keep in mind what's about to happen is your fault. "G'day from Australia. My kids and I are big fans of you and your videos and your eyebrow skills. We tried to learn the individual eyebrow raises. My daughter got it fairly quickly and I am still struggling. Any tips?" So aside from how to do a perfect Australian accent, my tip would be, you really got, so how I got good at doing, double, single, raising, big raising, single raises. I watched so much Ace Ventura and Jim Carrey as a kid and his face is so movable that I spent a lot of actual time dedicated to trying to isolate the muscles in my face and how to move them. So I don't know if there's like a genetic component or some people can just do it or not, like curling your tongue or whatever, but you actually do have to put in the time, baby. You do actually have to put in the time to identify how to move those muscles. There's a similar thing in rock climbing. There's a thing called a toe hook, and what you do is you take your toe and you put it on a hold, and then you pull down towards your body. So you're using your foot, the front of your foot, like a secondary hand or a tertiary hand. And if you've never activated that muscle group to do that kind of thing before, it takes some time to learn. And so I would just go in a mirror and work on it. Because usually I feel like when people actually try it, they try it once and then they're done. It's like me with whistling. Whenever someone's like, oh, you can't whistle? Try this. And I'm like, no, I can't do it. And then I never work on it again. That's because I'm stubborn. But do you know what I'm not stubborn with? Can you smell what I'm cooking? Thanks for that $25. Bobo Lick with the 10. Let's cut off the super chats because we're almost done. Bobo Glick with the 10. It says, glad I finally caught a whole stream live. I always watch and live your content. Do you? Do you live it? Do you get out there and whip chains around? Thanks for doing what you do. Well, of course, thank you for being here and supporting. It's all I can do. Press Rec says, how did you get on Mythbusters out of curiosity? I was at Nerdist, and I had been writing a number of articles that were appearing in Scientific American as well about Mythbusters, about the finale. I was recapping it on Nerdist each week. And the showrunner of Mythbusters emailed me. He's like, hey, I've seen you've written a lot of stuff. You seem like a Mythbusters super fan. Do you do on-camera work? Would be interested in talking to me. And after that, it was a industry process of, casting, doing test shoots to see how you look, negotiating contracts, and then we hit the ground running. And it was a pretty cool experience. Zach Bevan with the Australian $5 says, hey, finally caught a live stream. Yay. Thanks for being here. Nope, that's British. Ah! A lot of people can't whistle. Bergshin Senpai says, how does it feel like talking in front of 2,000 people? Feels normal. What you want to do, again, in my experience, but when I talk to you, straight D the B, or down the barrel, as they say. They don't say that. I say that. I say D the B. Down the barrel. I am just looking into a camera. And so it helps to think of an individual person at any one time. Someone like almost like living in the lens, that you're just talking to them and you're trying to be as focused as possible on delivering something that is cogent and coherent and entertaining and interesting. And when I try to do that, and it takes a lot of practice, like anything does, I can't see 2,000 people right now. So you don't get that feedback. When you do talk in front of 2,000 people live, like at a Comic-Con or something like that, you do get that feedback, instantaneous feedback, and it's very, very spooky and scary. It can, I think it would shut down people if you don't practice for it. I remember specifically when I went out onto a panel at Hall H at Comic-Con, which has like 6,000 people or whatever in it. And when they announce you coming on stage, the whole crowd starts cheering. And when I heard that cheer backstage, I almost crap my pants. Like it's so nervous. But so what I try to do whenever it's a larger group of people, I like to kind of poke and prod. I like to see what they're willing to do with me. So if I go out into a crowd at, if I'm talking to kids, you can be a lot sillier than if I'm talking to you, for example. Or if you're at a Comic-Con, you can make jokes, you can make nerdy things, and once you start getting that instantaneous feedback, you know, you make a joke about Superman or whatever, you know, you're on a panel about Marvel, you make a joke about DC, people love it. All right, so, okay, that's that instantaneous feedback where I can be a little bit more silly, less rigid, more fun, or I need to be, or conversely, I need to be more serious. And then you use that feedback in real time, like just a way is to hone your experience. And then within 5 to 10 minutes, you get a good feeling for how you're going to conduct the rest of the whatever you're doing. And so for this kind of thing, you know, you notice at the very top of the show, I'm talking very fast, and I have the memorization in my head, like, you know, welcome to office hours, blah, blah, blah. But now, after an hour of speaking, I'm more talking stilted, kind of like this, because I'm giving myself cut points in my brain to kind of like, okay, what are you talking about? What's funny? What's interesting? What was that gag you just did? Or what's that next topic you need to talk about? So everything that I do is very thought out beforehand, and I'm very, very aware in the back of my mind at all times how I sound and what and how I've been presenting myself. And like anything, that just takes practice. Nobody's naturally good at it. Music Central Piano 29 with the 50. Oh, every week, Central Piano. Keep up the great work, Kyle. Oh, if I didn't, I'd die. Hannah Miller with the 10 says, no question this time, but thanks for all you do, and you definitely talk to us as though we were simply speaking directly to who is watching Simp for Science. Oh, Hannah, thank you so much. I don't know how to do like a big stadium filling voice anyway, you know. No! Lizard toes. Crazy, right? Have you ever noticed how lizards walk like this? And scorpions walk like this? That's how I'd go on stage at the Apollo, and it wouldn't work too well. Paul James of the 5 says, ever been to Sheboygan? Yep, I'm from Wisconsin. And with that, we are going to call it on Office Hours. What did we talk about today? We talked about Gertrude and BMIs and how excited we should be or not about it. If you're just catching the tail end of the live stream, you came in halfway, the full live stream will go up to YouTube within the next hour or so. We also talked about how you can see tattoos underneath your skin, even though it looks like they're on the surface. Oh, it's cool. Also talked about the potential problems with the Starlink project. Bringing more information to more people does come at a scientific cost, probably. We also took one of your comments last episode of the facility where once again proved that Horizon Zero Dawn is one of my favorite games of this generation by far. And finally, we talked about how evolution can happen right before your very eyes in real time. And it shouldn't be a surprise once you understand that evolution makes biology make sense. So with that, I want to thank everyone who tuned in. We had a lot of live viewers today. Absolutely fantastic. If you want to join the facility, if you want to talk with me nearly every day on Discord, if you want episodes early, if you want behind-the-scenes content, if you want to join my Magic the Gathering League, all this stuff, you want to give me episode ideas, ask me questions, not just here. You can do that by going to patreon.com/Kyle Hill, as my security team will be putting in the chat. We have a lot of fun each week. We have a nice little community brewing. And I couldn't do it without your support, as all of you have been simping so far. So I know 2020, last couple of weeks have been pretty rough, but nothing to do but try to get through it. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and be nice to each other, because, and I'm trying to speak like it's just you and me right now. Be nice to each other, because this is all we got. Bye!